Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Kevin Zwicker. This is the Saudi Arabia WWE Crown Jewel post show on the Fast Count. The show just ended. We just saw the main event between Gunther and Cody Rhodes. We're going to hear and talk about the whole show and break down everything that we saw. So sit back, relax, grab yourself a drink, grab yourself a few snacks. I know I got my beverage right here, styrofoam cup, because we do not give free advertisement on the channel. So they kicked off the show tonight, and they had the OG Bloodline go one-on-one in a six-man tag match against the new Bloodline led by Solo Sikoa. And I knew this was the proper way to kick off the show. If you weren't going to have the Bloodline main event the show, the second best choice is to open it up. And we saw this match going into it. If you've been following the product for the last several weeks, you have seen that Jey Uso has really been emphasizing to Roman Reigns that if we are going to team up, if this is going to be a thing that we are going to be doing going forward, it's not going to be like how it was the last time. I don't want to be a lackey. I don't want to be treated any type of way like I was treated previously. I am my own individual. As we all know, Jey Uso, outside of Roman himself and Cody Rhodes, is probably the most over guy in the whole company. So he makes a lot of valid points. And they did with this match is they emphasized that point throughout. If you saw the beginning of the match, when they made their entrances, you had Jimmy Uso and Roman Reigns come out together, but you saw Jey Uso come out separately. And Jey Uso is over, man. It doesn't matter what part of this world that we are in, Jey Uso gets a massive ovation. And he got that tonight in Saudi Arabia. Throughout this match, you saw different points of contention between Jey Uso and Roman Reigns. In the beginning of the match, and even throughout the whole match, the crowd was really wanting to see Roman Reigns get himself involved. And you saw Jey Uso open up the match. And when the crowd would be chanting for Roman Reigns to get in, when there'd be opportunities for him to make a tag, he would be hesitant to do it and wouldn't do it and would tag in his brother Jimmy instead. Throughout the whole match, you saw the crowd really invested in this story. If you saw Monday Night Raw, you saw Jey Uso and Jimmy Uso bury the hatchet, but you also saw the element of Sami Zayn being reintroduced to this storyline. Now, the way that Raw ended, it ended with a kind of a cliffhanger ending when it became apparent that Solo Sikoa and Sami Zayn were having conversations. We don't know what were the topics of this conversation, but we saw them talking, so we know that that's going to be something that's going to be brought up within the next several weeks. But this was a match that you saw many different points where Solo Sikoa was establishing his dominance. We got a point in the match where we had Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa one-on-one in the ring with each other. You saw Roman Reigns getting the best of Solo Sikoa. But as we all know with this new bloodline, the numbers game always seems to catch up somehow, some way. And with them having a tension brewing between the OG bloodline, you knew that they weren't 100% going to be on the same page. So that really peeked its ugly head into the ring. And we saw Solo Sikoa and the new bloodline catch a big time W, which is great. You know, as we all know, and I've talked about it like multiple different times on multiple different occasions, how it's obvious that we are heading towards this OG bloodline and this new bloodline in a War Games match in Montreal in Canada. We're trying to figure out how we're going to get the framework of that match. And at the end of this match, we see the new bloodline try to give Roman Reigns one of the OG Shield power bombs through the announce table, but we see them change their mind. We see them put Roman Reigns in the middle of the ring. They were going to put the chair around his neck. They were going to end Roman Reigns' career tonight. But we see Sami Zayn make the save. We see Sami Zayn come into the ring. You had these two bloodlines on two different sides of the ring. Nobody really knowing what side is Sammy going to be on. He goes in for the hug with Solo Sikoa, but as soon as they make the hug, Solo Sikoa gets T-boned by Sami Zayn, and we see a wild brawl break out. At one point in this wild brawl, we have Solo Sikoa surrounded by Sami Zayn in the OG bloodline. Sami Zayn goes for the knee. He misses Solo Sikoa and ends up kneeing Roman Reigns in the face. So now we are in a point now where none of the bloodlines really know what side Sami Zayn is on. Sami Zayn made it clear to the people and the people in the arena that he is with the OG bloodline, but how could they trust him now once they saw him talking with Solo Sikoa? The fact that he's not family, that they've brought up multiple times, and the fact that he laid out Roman Reigns, whether it was intentional or not, he did it. So Sami Zayn is really got himself stuck in the middle of this bloodline vortex that he tried to escape for so long, but somehow, some way, it sucked him back in, and we don't know how this is going to play out. But we do know that he is back in the fold with this bloodline storyline. We are going to go to the comment section real fast. I am going to butcher your name, unfortunately, man. It looks like Zeke Delgado, and he says, "Hey, Fast Count, see you next pay-per-view, WWE Survivor Series, November 30th in Canada, whose hometown Sami Zayn is. A hometown is Canada." Sami Zayn is a Canadian legend. The only two Canadians that I could think of that are more famous than Sami Zayn are, well, three. Bret Hart, Drake, and Bieber, right? Well, Weekend. But Sami Zayn is coming home to Canada. And hopefully the OG bloodline will be picking up the W in that match. Next, we are going to go into the second match of the night. It was the fatal four-way for the Tag Team Women's Championship. We had Jade and Bianca defending their championships against Io Sky and Kairi Sane, Chelsea Green and Piper Niven, and NXT's Lash Legend and Jakara Jackson. This was Lash Legend and Jakara Jackson's first WWE PLE, and I think that they look good. You know, throughout the years, there's kind of been a point where there's not really been a lot of synergy between NXT and the main roster viewership. Of course, there's hardcores that enjoy watching both, but there's a lot of people who just strictly watch the main roster and don't watch NXT. So I think for people who are unfamiliar with their work, they made a very good impression. You saw throughout the match that the crowd was chanting NXT. So there is a portion of the audience who are very familiar with their work, and that's good to see. Shawn Michaels has really been cooking down there, especially with the women's division. And he had his handprints all over this tag team to where they came out looking like $1 million in this match. Of course, when you have multi-person matches like this, you're going to see a whole bunch of car crashes. And that's what we saw tonight. We saw multiple different spots where we saw high dives off of the top rope, landing on a bunch of different tag teams. We saw Jade really be able to showcase her strength. As we all know, that is her strong suit. Jade is an individual. And when you get this comparison, you know, people kind of take it as an insult, especially fans online, which if you really think about it, it's not, because of how over this individual was and how recognizable this individual was and how much money this individual has made throughout his wrestling career. But she is very much so in the same vein as Goldberg, where it's you have this great packaging, you have this great interest, looks like a comic book character in real life. But when it comes to the in-ring work, you know, there's a little bit to be desired. And it's kind of strange, man, because she is new to the business, you know, and pro wrestling relatively. You know, she had her run in AEW, which was a lot of different squash matches. She's been teamed up with Bianca Belair since she's been in WWE. Didn't go to NXT. So there's not really a lot of meat on the bone when it comes to actual in-ring work development, because I just think of the fact that she doesn't have a lot of reps. And I don't see how an individual can really improve that much when all you've been doing is squash matches in one company and then tag teaming in another. But eventually, you know, fingers crossed, you know, all the things will be able to connect eventually. We saw in the beginning at one point of the match, we saw a teasing of a confrontation between Jade Cargill and Lash Legend. These are two very large individuals, and some point down the line, we will get that match, and I do think it will do big business. Then later on throughout the match, we finally get a physical confrontation between the two. And it was just like two, like, I don't even know how you would compare it. Like Godzilla and like Mothra, like going at each other. You saw these two kaiju monsters going at it, and then we see Piper Niven, who is also a powerhouse as well, interrupt that skirmish between those two and lay them out with a cross body. We see throughout this match, we see Chelsea Green getting woman handled by Jade or woman handled by Bianca. Chelsea Green, she doesn't get a lot of W's and she doesn't get a lot of love online, but she is all over the screen when it comes to these PLEs and when it comes to the shows on a weekly basis. So she has fans, whether it's in management or viewership. There's people who are checking out Chelsea Green. You know, Chelsea Green has been putting up some quality work, and people are recognizing her. And it's good to see somebody who's been working as hard as she has really get the recognition. You know, we all like to see people succeed in life, you know, based off of working hard. So it's nice to see that she's getting rewarded for her work. We see Bianca and Jade hit a doomsday device, LOD, Road Warrior style, on Piper Niven to retain the championship. I feel like we all know where this tag team is going to lead to. All roads lead to the eventual singles match between Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill, which I do believe will be the best match of Jade Cargill's career. Bianca Belair is, when it comes to performing in the ring, she is in a league of the elites. She is up there with individuals like Charlotte Flair, like Mercedes Moné. She is in the conversation, in my opinion, for the best in-ring working female wrestler in the world today. So I'm sure she will be able to get things out of Jade Cargill that we normally don't see out of Jade Cargill, that some of us may not even know that Jade Cargill has in her bag. But we are eventually going to get that match, and I'm looking forward to it. Next, we are going to go into the match between Bronson Reed and Seth Rollins. Triple H did an extremely good job of taking Bronson Reed, who is an individual who is, prior to this beatdown that he laid down on Seth Rollins, was cold as ice. Let's just be real. You know, he was just another big guy on the roster. He was cut previously before under Vince McMahon and was brought back under Triple H's regime. So he was an individual who Triple H showed that he had interest in him, showed that he thought that he had promise, but wasn't really doing anything. And he was made into a star just like that. And that one night where he laid out Seth Rollins. This is probably the biggest match of Bronson Reed's career. Prior to this match, we saw a lot of different smash matches. We saw Bronson Reed laying a lot of people out. We saw him lay out Braun Strowman on the car. But this was a match against Seth Rollins. And going into this match, man, I really thought that a win by Bronson Reed was the way to go. Because I'm not really a big fan of these promotions having these big-time monsters, laying these people out, and not winning when it's important. It kind of, in my mind, just nullifies the beatdowns that they've been giving out, because it's like, okay, you see them beating people down, but when it comes to beating individuals in big-time matches, they lose. It just takes a little bit off of the luster, in my opinion. You know, I could be wrong. But this was a match that started off really hot. We saw, as soon as Bronson Reed's music hit and he walks out, we saw Seth Rollins gunning for him on the ramp. We saw these two going at it before the bell even rang. We saw Bronson Reed tease him throwing Seth Rollins off the ramp. We saw Seth Rollins fight back. Throughout this match, of course, with the size differential, you saw that Bronson Reed was really giving Seth Rollins the beats. A nice little case of the beats. You saw Seth Rollins fight back, and every single time Seth Rollins would fight back, or it would look like that he would gain momentum, Bronson Reed would somehow, some way, find his way to get Seth Rollins on the ground and manhandle him some more. There was points in the match where Bronson Reed looked extremely strong, and that's what you want with your monster. You want them to look as strong as humanly possible. So We see Seth Rollins getting manhandled. We see him have this look on his face like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how I'm going to be able to take this guy down because he's just too much. We see them brawling outside of the ring. And we get to a point towards the end of the match where Seth Rollins curb stomps Bronson Reed on the steel steps. We see Bronson Reed get broken open a little bit right above his eye. Then we see Bronson Reed get back into the ring. And we see Seth Rollins give him a super stomp from the top rope. 1, 2, 3. Seth Rollins wins the match. He beats Bronson Reed. Now, like I said before I talked about this match, I thought the way to go was having Bronson Reed win. But when you think about it and analyze it a little bit further, Seth Rollins is obviously going to be on to bigger, better things. We all know that at some point, probably relatively soon, whether it's the Royal Rumble or WrestleMania this year, we are going to get Seth Rollins versus CM Punk. So for these big time super matches that Seth Rollins is going to be involved, you want him to look as strong as possible for them. So, of course, looking at it further, analyzing it, it makes a little bit of sense that Seth Rollins won the match. Now, we see Seth Rollins pick up the W, but literally within 30 seconds, we see Bronson Reed stand back up. We see him gushing blood outside of his eye right here. It's a cool visual seeing this big hulking man bleeding, telling Seth Rollins he wants more. They tease another match. We have Seth Rollins saying, hey, if you want some more, you know this is going to happen the exact same way the next time we go at it. So, of course, we're going to get another match down the line. I'm assuming Bronson Reed is going to have to get one of the W's these days. I'm going to think that we're going to get a trilogy when it comes to this feud. Hopefully, Bronson Reed picks up a little W the next time. Round 3 would probably go to Seth Rollins because, like I said, he is built for another big-time match further down the line against CM Punk, possibly for the championship, possibly at the Rumble or WrestleMania. So we are going to go into match 4. In match 4 is Liv Morgan versus Nia Jax for the Crown Jewel Women's Championship. Now, the way they presented this championship, I really like the way they've been doing this for the women and the men's. They had it guarded kind of similar to the way the NHL does the Stanley Cup. You have guys with white gloves not wanting to leave their handprints on the championship like they do in the Stanley Cup. You have 2 individuals guarding the championships at all times. So I like the way that they really presented it to way and made the championship look like it was a big deal. Obviously, going into this match, there was a big size advantage between Nia Jax and Liv Morgan. Now, these 2 individuals are known to have a lot of cheeky shenanigans when it comes to their matches. We have Tiffany Stratton interfering for Nia Jax in her matches. We have Dirty Dom and Raquel Rodriguez interfering in Liv Morgan's matches. So you knew at some point we were going to get interference. And that's exactly what we got tonight in this match. Throughout this match, we saw Liv Morgan trying to do her best to take Nia Jax off of her feet. She failed multiple times throughout the match to be able to do that. At one point, she landed a spinning DDT to get Nia Jax on her feet, and that was literally lasting like that. She was off her feet for maybe 30 seconds max, and Liv Morgan just had no answers. You know, there was a point in time where she was able to get Nia Jax off of her feet again. You saw the 2 of them laying down in the middle of the ring, and then we hear Tiffany Stratton's music hit. The crowd goes crazy. They are expecting a cash in. We see, and I don't know how this happens every single time. WWE, man, they might need to give cognizant tests to these referees because every single time somebody wants to cash in with these refs, they're asking that person multiple times, are they sure? They're acting like they can't hear. The person is rushing them. You know, you would think throughout the years, the Money in the Bank isn't a new concept. It's been going on for over a decade. So you would think that they would know by now, but apparently they don't. So we see Liv telling her, yes, cash it in. Nia catches Tiffany Stratton and she says, what are you doing? Tiffany tries to explain, no, I was going to cash on Liv. We have Nia Jax on and said, now is not the time. And then we see Tiffany Stratton teasing that she is going to leave. And then we see her turn back her head, give this kind of a side eye, and she stays around the ring. Now, there comes another point where they are both down, and you see Tiffany Stratton try to give the briefcase to the ref again, but we see none other than Raquel Rodriguez snatch that briefcase away from her. And then you see Dirty Dom also come from the shadows. And so these two just cornered Tiffany Stratton, and we see Liv Morgan about to get, not Liv Morgan, we see Tiffany Stratton about to get a case of the beats from Raquel Rodriguez. But of course, Nia Jax interferes. We see Dirty Dom take the briefcase, throw it in the middle of the ring during the match, distracting the ref while Raquel Rodriguez interferes with the match and hits Nia Jax. We see Liv Morgan lay her out with an Oblivion. 1, 2, 3. Liv Morgan wins the championship, and she is the first women's crown jewel champion in WWE history. You had Triple H come out and present her with the championship. And going into this PLE, I predicted that Liv Morgan was going to win. I got my prediction right. I'm happy about that. These two are moving in two separate directions. We are eventually going to get that inevitable Nia Jax versus Tiffany Stratton match. I feel like the cash-in for Tiffany Stratton on the championship will happen to Nia Jax relatively soon. And as we get closer and closer to WrestleMania series, and that's obviously a match that we could possibly get. And I feel like that's the direction that we're going to go. Next, we get into KO versus Randy Orton. Now, this was a match that never got started. We should have known, right? Triple H is notorious for having these 5-match cards. We should have known that once we got 7 matches announced, that we weren't going to really get 7 matches. And we didn't get a match between these two. We had KO come out and rocked a Bob Orton shirt. We see Randy Orton come out, and we see him do his signature moves, all that. We see him do his signature pose, and then we see KO hit him in the back with a chair, whack. We see him whacking Randy Orton with a chair multiple times. We see them brawling outside. We see KO lay him on the announce table, and we see all these guys just brawling. We see the referee eventually take the chair out of KO's hands. We see KO hit the ref with the stunner. There is no ref involved. Mind you, the bell has not rung at all this whole time once this crazy brawl is going on. We see Randy Orton eventually take the chair out of KO's hands. We see him giving KO a little bit of taste of his medicine when it comes to that chair action. We see Sean Daivari come in, snatch the chair from Randy Orton. You know what's funny about Sean Daivari, man? His brother responded to me on Twitter once, because his brother, he wrestles in AEW, and he was talking about how a lot of times people thought that Sean was his brother because Sean just looks so much older, And I thought he was your dad too. And he told me, like, you're not the only one. So, confirmation, Ari Daivari and Sean Daivari are not father and son. They are actually brothers. All right. Who knew, right? So we see him get himself a little bit of that RKO action. We see him get thrown out of the ring. And then we see both GMs of the shows, I was going to call him Nick Nemeth. I'm calling him Nick Nemeth. Magnus from TNA. And we see Adam Pearce come in. And we see Adam Pearce trying to talk to Randy Orton, trying to calm him down. But we see him get himself a little RKO action. And he gets tossed out of the ring, and just total chaos is still ensuing. We see them eventually brawling out in the stands with the people. We see Randy Orton get laid out on the table. We see KO whacking him in the head with one of the covers for one of their stage equipments. And we see, I don't even know, what would you describe this as? I guess you would describe it as like a stage or a ramp or something. But we see KO climb on top of the stage ramp contraption. And we see him elbow Randy Orton through the table. Obviously, this is going to continue the storyline between the two. And we have progression in the story where we're seeing how Kevin Owens is becoming more and more trapped inside of this illusion in his mind that Randy Orton betrayed him. And logically, if you think about it, man, it makes no sense at all to me. As we all know, Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes have had a relationship, that is a decade plus. So I don't know why Kevin Owens would think that Randy would ever choose him over somebody that he's known for a decade plus. But hey, this is a storyline that we're going to go with. And we're eventually going to get to that KO Cody Rhodes match down the line. I'm thinking possibly at Survivor Series because these two aren't going to be involved in the Samoan War Games match. So sooner rather than later, we are going to get that KO versus Cody Rhodes match for the championship. Next, we are going to go into the triple threat for the United States Championship. We had LA Knight going at Andrade and Carmelo Hayes for the United States Championship. And this was just two hoopers going at it with a star. And as you know, we have been watching Carmelo Hayes and Andrade go at it for several weeks in this 7-game series against each other. And it's so funny when you think about it. When it was announced that Andrade was leaving AEW for WWE, a lot of people who are on the AEW side were saying things like, he's just going to be another person on the roster. They're not going to do anything with him. It was just super funny how, and even when you saw that he won the Speed Championship, that speed thing that they do on Twitter, people use that as something to mock him with. But as we know, with the past several weeks, we have seen that Andrade is a hooper. And throughout this match, man, we saw them trying to throw LA Knight out the paint so they could just do what they do. Two guys hooping at a high level going at it. But we see LA Knight be the ultimate opportunist and pick up the W in this match. This was something that we all knew was going to happen because you had two people who are so distracted and trying to figure out a way to give each other the beats, to one-up each other, that they were going to find a way to get their focus off the important goal, which is the U.S. Championship. And we see LA Knight hit a double BFT to win the match, retain the championship. Now, at this point in juncture, I don't know where we're going to go with LA Knight's championship reign because there really isn't any clear contenders at this moment. A match that I'd really be into seeing that I think would be cool would be him and Sheamus. Sheamus is a guy who is on the pre-show. That's what's so strange, right? Sheamus, a guy who's a known hooper on the pre-show. What are you doing? So we don't know what the direction is going to go with LA Knight, but he retains his championship for now. Another possibility is a rematch with Logan Paul. Who knows? He's going to be back eventually. He says right now that he's on paternity leave and he might not possibly be at WrestleMania. And I was thinking, I was like, damn, how long is the paternity leave for a guy? Maybe it's just me being ignorant. I didn't know that a guy has so much long paternity leave. But nonetheless, he will be back eventually. And LA Knight is kind of a man with no country at the moment. We are going to the comments. We said got Salty Grampy 2367. Hey kid, what's going on, Dad? Dad, I know you didn't watch the show, but I'm glad you're in the post show. Pops isn't really into the WWE. He's an AEW guy, which is fine, right? It's fine to like one or the other. It's fine to like both. On the fast count, I got to talk all wrestling, so I got to like both, even if I don't like both, right? Now we are going to go into the main event. We have Cody Rhodes versus Gunther for the Crown Jewel Men's Championship. As I've said multiple times on the show or on my channel, this is a WrestleMania main event caliber match. They presented the Crown Jewel Championship the exact same way that they did with the Women's Championship. They gave it the Stanley Cup treatment. And this was a match that before they even touched hands, and I don't want to compare it to this match because this is probably, in my opinion, one of the greatest wrestling matches of all time. But it had the similar effect of Rock versus Hogan, where if you put the match on mute, it's really not that great of a match. What makes that match is the crowd. And that's what happened tonight. We saw the crowd be 100% behind the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes. They had them doing the famous soccer chants. but they did it with Cody. You know, the ole, ole, ole chants, but we saw them doing Cody, Cody, okay, okay. Really cool. This is a match that was very slow paced throughout it. You saw a lot of mat wrestling between the two. You saw Cody Rhodes and Gunther show off their amateur backgrounds. As we all know, Cody Rhodes does have an amateur background in wrestling. Gunther, he is a guy who has serious background when it comes to hand-to-hand combat in the UK. Not UK. UK. He's an Australian guy, but he made his name in the UK. We see it was a lot really slow paced towards the end. Towards the end is where we really got the match speeding up. We saw Gunther lay him out with these chops. Gunther chop probably hurts a lot. I know The Undertaker has talked about in the past how he's not a fan of the chops and how when he wrestled Ric Flair, he told Flair, you got 3 and that's it, because it really hurts hard. I can imagine when the Big Show was giving people chops, the size of that man's hand, it's like probably felt like getting slapped in the chest with a frying pan. So you see these two guys going at it. And before the show, when I did my predictions video, I predicted that Cody Rhodes was going to win this match. And we saw Cody Rhodes pick up the W. We saw Cody Rhodes multiple times throughout the match get put in a sleeper hold by Gunther, but somehow, some way would find a way to escape it. But towards the end, we see Gunther get hit with the crossroads. We see him kick out of the crossroads. We see Gunther being in the middle of the match. We saw Cody attempt to do a Cody cutter, get caught in a sleeper hold by Gunther again, but somehow, some way, he was able to shift his body and cover Gunther for the 1, 2, 3. We saw Cody Rhodes pick up the W. We saw Triple H come back to present him with the Crown Jewels Men Championship. We saw I would assume that the Saudi government officials come out to celebrate with Cody Rhodes as well. And we see Cody Rhodes have that image with 2 belts in his hand. Liv Morgan was also there as well. And the crowd went home happy. Cody Rhodes is an individual right now who has his ready-made feud with KO as soon as he's able to wrap that thing up with Randy Orton. But we don't know what's going to be his match at WrestleMania right now. Everything kind of hinges on The Rock. We don't know what's going on with The Rock. WrestleMania season, we have the XFL going on. We have different movies that he has to promote as well. So his status at WrestleMania, you see multiple different dirt sheets saying he's 100% in. And I would think that he would be 100% in, being a guy who is on the board. So he has some financial incentive to want to be at WrestleMania and for it to be as big as possible, right? But we don't 100% know. We have dirt sheets saying he's going to be there. We have different dirt sheets saying he's not going to be there. We saw him clap back at Dave Meltzer on Instagram when he said that he isn't going to be there, saying, don't believe everything you're hearing. So at this moment, we still don't know. So it kind of is up in the air. We don't know if we're going to see Cody Rhodes one-on-one against The Rock. That has been a match that has been teased. We don't know if we're going to see The Rock versus Roman Reigns. There's even been talks of having Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes, and The Rock in a triple threat, which I think is a horrible idea. I don't know. If you want to sit there and give The Rock the benefit of not having to work a singles match, that's the only positive I see in that. But the concept of that, I feel like, is pretty dumb because the money's in the singles matches, right? Why would you put all 3 of these guys and have one big match when you could have 3? Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes, 3. Roman Reigns versus The Rock one-on-one. Cody Rhodes versus The Rock one-on-one. There's more money in the singles matches than there is altogether. Got my dad saying, got to support you, kid. Appreciate that, Pops. The Fast Count respects you for that and appreciates that. I think my mom's watching too, but she doesn't comment because she doesn't know anything about wrestling. But if you're out there, Mom, I love you. But that's basically the show. If I was going to give a Meltzer star rating for this show, I'd probably go about 3, 3.5. There wasn't many surprises when it came to this. We all know that this was going to be the way that the show was going to end, with Cody Rhodes being victorious. And we saw today earlier, I don't know if you guys watched College Game Day, but we saw Goldberg confirm on the show that he is having his retirement match in the WWE next year. We already saw that he was going to have this confrontation. It's been teased online already that he is going to have a match with Gunther. So I feel like the way Gunther lost with a quick roll-up, it's not that terrible way to lose. And he could obviously gain back that momentum by destroying Goldberg at 3 minutes. No harm, no foul. You get Goldberg what he wants, a big, marquee match for his last one, and you get the young guy getting the rub by beating Goldberg. So no harm, no foul that Gunther lost this match. So like I said, he could regain his momentum by beating Goldberg like that. So it's no big deal. All in all, the two guys that were in the main event, they came off strong. It was a good match. It was a match that wasn't all that surprising, but it got the job done. And that's basically the same way that I'd be able to describe this show today. Before I get out, Salty Grampy, my pops, he said, it will be the last for Cena, so Randy versus Cena is what the people want. I feel like that's one of those matches that people say they want it. And in their mind, they're like, I want it. But it's a cooler idea in your mind than it probably actually will be. Kind of similar to the last couple of years where people were saying, I want The Undertaker and Sting when they were older guys. It's a match in your mind. It's cool. And it's like, oh, man, this is great. But may not be exactly the coolest thing if we actually see it in real life. Cena, I'm not going to say the guy is 100% washed. All right. But this is not prime Cena. This might not even be Cena, from 5-6 years ago. The fact that he's inactive, and I'm not saying that like, oh, I'm like dissing the guy, but he's a movie star. He's not wrestling on a regular basis. The fact that he's inactive, the fact that he's older, the fact that, it's just not the same. I don't know if that match would deliver what people are thinking that it can deliver. And that might not even be important. I think the fact that even if we saw it for 5 minutes, right, that just might be what people want to see. These guys in the ring together, they probably don't care about the actual quality of the match. And if you're an individual who doesn't care about the quality of the match, you just want to see these guys in the ring one more time, then I think we're going to get that too. They wrestled a ton of times, but if you really look out through the history of the match that they had, there's a bunch of stinkers in there as well. People, they're looking at that feud with rose-colored glasses to me, if you really want to think about it. I feel like if we're talking about a nostalgia Cena match, I feel like the match that would be better would be him and CM Punk, because they had some classics. Obviously, that wouldn't be as great as it was before either, with CM Punk being a guy who gets injured very often and Cena not being the same guy he was before. But if you had to put a gun to my head and say, I'm going to get a nostalgia match when it comes to Cena, that's the match that I'm more interested in when it comes to nostalgia Cena matches. But that's just me. All right. Guys, if you check this out, please remember to like. If you are not subscribed, please remember to subscribe. It helps the channel out in more ways than you even know. Plus, it's free. I am Kevin Zwicker. I'm out.